Dear students, welcome to the next lecture of electrical measurement. Now, in this lecture, we are starting our second unit. Okay, since we already finished with the first unit, so this is the first lecture of the second unit, and the very first topic will be galvanometers. Okay. So first of all, what we know for a galvanometer is that it is essentially an instrument which is designed to be sensitive to extremely low current levels. Okay, so this is designed to be sensitive to extremely low level current. Okay, and galvanometers, very often you find these instruments to be employed to detect zero current or voltage in a circuit rather than to measure the actual level of current or voltage. Okay, so they are often employed to detect zero current or voltage in a circuit. Okay, so that means they can also work as a null detector or a null meter, you can also call it. Okay, because we have just finished the topic of the different bridge circuits which we saw in the last part of the previous unit. So in all these bridge circuits a detector will be used. So most often we use the galvanometer uh, as a kind of detector in the bridge circuits. Okay, so now if we talk about the different parts which are present in the galvanometer, that is from its constructional point of view, so we can say that the main part, first of all, it consists of a coil. Okay, and is also consist of a magnet, suspension coil. Okay, so this coil which is also called a moving coil, this is a coil of fine wire which is suspended in a magnetic field produced by these permanent magnets. So this will be the permanent magnet, it will produce the magnetic field, and the coil will be suspended in the magnetic field produced by these permanent magnet. And according to the fundamental laws of electromagnetic force, you know that the coil will rotate in the magnetic field when it carries an electric current, and the fine filament of the suspension of the coil, it just serves to carry the current to and from it, and the elasticity of the filament sets up a moderate torque in opposition to the rotation of the coil. Okay, so if I just show you the arrangement for the galvanometer, so this is the constructional you can say picture of the D'Arsenal galvanometer. Okay, so these are the pair of magnets, north pole and south pole, you can see. So these are magnets. Okay, and this is the moving coil which is being placed on a former, metallic former, here it is. Okay, and this is the upper suspension, this is the lower suspension. Okay, and the second part which is shown here, so this is the view from the top view. So this is the top view, whereas this is the front view. Okay, so you can see that this is the coil. So this D represents the width of the coil, this L can represents this vertical height of the coil. Okay, So the coil actually will continue to deflect until its electromagnetic torque balances the mechanical counter torque of the suspension. So we can say that the coil deflection therefore is a measure of the magnitude of the current carried by the coil. Okay, and there is also a mirror which is attached to it. So the mirror actually which is attached to this coil, it deflects a beam of light causing a magnified light spot to move on a scale which is at some distance from the instrument. So you can just write down some important points, that there is a moving coil, that is this coil is suspended in magnetic field. Okay, and the coil will rotate in the magnetic field when it carries the electric current. So the coil will rotate in the magnetic field when it carries electric current. Okay, so this thing I had already explained. And the mirror which is attached to this assembly, this is just used for indication. Okay, so a beam of light which is reflected from this mirror, so a spot will be visible on the scale. Okay, so this is the objective of placing the mirror in that. So all in all, this is the overall construction. This is the overall construction of this galvanometer. Okay, all the parts are clear, that these are the magnets, this is the moving coil, this is the mirror. Okay, now let us see the equation of motion, or before that let us go through the torque equation. Okay, so first of all let us suppose that this L and D, it is the length of respectively vertical and horizontal side. So as is visible in the figure also, that this is D. Okay, so this is D and this is L, whatever be this length, this vertical length, so this will be L. So L and D are the lengths of vertical and horizontal side respectively. This capital N represents the number of turns in the coil. So number of turns in the coil. B represents the flux density in the air gap. I is the current through the moving coil. So current through moving coil. So the coil is also called moving coil. Okay, obviously since it deflects, so that is why we can also call it as moving coil or simply coil. This K represents the spring constant, and we represent theta f for the final steady state deflection of the moving coil. Okay. So, final steady state deflection of moving coil. Okay. So, the deflecting torque can be written as, if we represent deflecting torque by this T with subscript D, so we can show that this deflecting torque is equal to the product of N, B, A, I, where all these parameters are defined in just the previous slide. Okay. Sometimes this part, that is the product of N, B and A, this is defined by another constant which is represented as this G. So, this is called the displacement constant of the galvanometer. So, this is displacement constant of galvanometer. Okay. And the controlling torque is exerted by the suspension which are present in the assembly at the deflection. So, it is represented as TC. C stands for controlling torque. So, it can be written as K times theta f, where K is the spring constant, theta f is the final deflection. So, at final deflection, final steady state deflection, obviously this deflecting torque should be equal to the controlling torque. So, that means that this K times theta f, that is the controlling torque, should be equal to this G into I, where this G is this displacement constant, okay, and I is the current. So, from here the final deflection, that is theta f, should be equal to G I over K. Now, next we have to discuss the dynamic behavior of galvanometer. So, for that we have to write the equation of motion, but before that we have to discuss the certain constants which are there in the galvanometer. Okay. Now, dynamic behavior of galvanometer is important because when we pass the current through the galvanometer, so it does not reach the final steady state deflection immediately, but there is a certain time interval or you can say a period of transition during which the moving system of the galvanometer deflects from its initial position to the final steady state position. Okay. So, for this let us first consider the different constants of the galvanometer. So, one of the constant we already had discussed, that is the displacement constant, and that is represented by this capital G. Okay. So, we had seen that the displacement torque is given by the product of this displacement constant and the current which is to be measured. Okay. Second can be the inertia constant, Okay, because we know that owing to the inertia of the moving system, there is a retarding torque which is produced in the system. Okay, so this torque is dependent on the moment of inertia of the moving system and the angular acceleration. So this uh, inertia torque which can be represented by this t suffix j, which it will be equal to j times d square theta over dt square. Okay, now this j is called the moment of inertia of moving system, and this is also called the inertia constant. Okay, so this j is the inertia constant. Similarly, there is a damping constant also, damping constant, because we know that the damping is also provided by the friction due to the motion of the coil in the air, and sometimes it is also due to the induced electrical effects if a closed circuit is provided. Okay, so damping torque can be assumed to be proportional to the speed of the moving system. So damping torque can be written as Td equals to d times d theta over dt. Okay, and where this d is called the damping constant. So this is the damping constant, and finally there can be a control constant as well. So this is because that the controlling torque is produced due to the elasticity of the system. So controlling torque we had already seen previously as well, that it is simply k times theta. So k is called the control constant. Now, having discussed all these different constants, we can now write the equation of motion. So equation of motion can be written down as that is the sum of this inertia torque, damping torque, control torque should be equal to this deflection torque. Okay, so for any deflection theta at any instant t, this equation should hold, or if we just put their values, so it will be j times d square theta over dt square plus d times d theta over dt plus k theta will be equal to g times I. Okay, so now this is a second order linear differential equation, and you have to solve it by using or by evaluating the complementary function as well as particular integral for it. So whatever be the solution of this differential equation is, so let's suppose if I write the complementary function, then the auxiliary equation will be j times m square plus dm plus k equals to 0. Okay, so this thing have been assumed to be this m. Okay, so from here if you just apply the quadratic formula, you can get minus d plus d square minus 4 times kj over 2j, and with minus sign also. So these can be the two different roots. So m1 m2 both you can write here. Okay, so the only difference will be of this minus sign. So in one root it will be minus d plus under root d square minus 4 kj over 2j, and the second root which can be represented by m2, so this will be minus d minus under root d square minus 4 kj over 2j. Okay, so after evaluating this you can just write the solution as a times e raised to the power m1t plus b times e raised to the power m2t. Okay, similarly for particular integral also you can write under steady state conditions this should be 0 and this should also be 0. Okay, because there is no deflection under steady state condition. So putting the above conditions in the previous equation, you can get theta f to be gi over k. So the complete solution of the differential equation can be a times e raised to the power m1t plus b e raised to the power m2t plus theta f. So this is theta f. So this can be the complete solution of the differential equation. Okay, so now knowing these roots, that is m1 and m2, which were the two roots. Okay, so from these roots we can predict the type of the behavior. Okay, so there can be three different cases. So the first case, that is the case 1, can be when d square is less than 4 times kj. So in this case the two roots m1 and m2, both roots will be imaginary. So m1 and m2 are imaginary. Okay, and this means that in this condition the motion is oscillatory, or we can call it as under damped response. Okay, so under damped response means that the motion will be oscillatory and the galvanometer will oscillate about its final position. Okay, but after some time it will just settle down. Okay, so it will oscillate with decreasing amplitude. So something like this, okay, so with decreasing amplitude it will oscillate, and after some time it will settle to its final position. That is called as under damped behavior. Second case can be when d square equals to 4 times kj. So in this case both roots will be real and equal. So both roots real and equal. Okay, and in this case the response will be critically damped. So the meaning of critically damped is that there will be no oscillation and the response will go to its required value in a quick time. Okay, so this is the meaning of the critically damped system. Next we go to the third case, and in this case if t square, let's suppose, is greater than 4 times kj, so in this case both roots are real. Okay, and the response is overdamped. So overdamped means that whatever be the final value, the response will reach there in a sluggish way, that is it takes a lot of time to reach there, although there are no oscillations, but it will reach its final position very slowly. Okay, so that is the meaning of overdamped. So if you compare it with a critically damped system, so critically damped system will reach the response much quicker. So this is critically damped and this is overdamped. Okay, so you can see that critically damped system will reach the response faster than the overdamped response. And what about underdamped system? So underdamped system will have certain oscillations before settling down to the final value. Okay, so you can see that although it the underdamped system, that is this is underdamped, so although this system is reaching the final value in the quickest way, okay, that is faster than all the three, but there will be oscillation about this final value. It will just go beyond the final value, then come back again, then again will go beyond that value. So certain oscillations are there before reaching the final steady state value. Okay, so this is the meaning of overdamped, critically damped and underdamped system. So overdamped system means sluggish response. Okay, so obviously we want the system to reach the final value in a quick way. Okay, so generally a compromise between the quality and cost is generally it is done. So mostly slightly we can say that slightly underdamped systems are designed. Okay, so with this much we stop today, and next topic will be taken up in next class. Thank you very much.